Krishna Kristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Swamiti Nama Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Devasesha Sunyavadi Bhattacharya Sarkari Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Devasesha Sunyavadi Bhattacharya Sarkari Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. 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 Gopijana Ballabha Girivardhari. Gopijana Ballabha Girivardhari. Gopijana Ballabha Girivardhari. Gopijana Ballabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Rajanandana Yashodanandana Rajanandana Yashodanandana Yamona Chira Yamona Chira Punjabi Punjabi Jaya Madhava Punjabi Madhava Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Rama Hare Jaya Vishnu Pada Paramahamsa Parivar Acharya Ashtotha Satisla A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Ananta Kota Vaishnava Vrindaki Namakarya Shri Haridas Thakur Prince of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Ganga Maya Ki Jamuna Maya Ki Tulasi Deva Ki Bhakti Deva Ki Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Lord Chaitanya's Harinam Sankirtan Ki Brihat Madanga Ki Srila Prabhupada Ki Gaur Premande Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glorious to the assembled devotees. All glorious to the assembled devotees. All glorious to the assembled devotees. All glorious to Sri Guru Grand. All glorious to Sri Prabhupada. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Mustaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Name. Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvasesha Shunyavadi Pastachari Shatari Vanchakalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Hare Krishna Prabhus Vaishnavis, Vaishnavas, we'd like to apologize first off that, for the last few classes, for various reasons. We've been interrupted, or let's say other subject matters came up. We hope that will be more regular in the future. We can't guarantee anything in this world, as we all understand. So today we're continuing our reading, our discussion from the teachings of Lord Kapila Dev. And today we begin the verse which is probably the most famous in this section of the teachings of Lord Kapila Dev. The science in this particular section of devotional service, usually we understand he teaches the understanding of Sankhya philosophy, but the whole objective of Sankhya is to come to devotional service. It doesn't come to the conclusion of devotional service, it's not complete. So today we're going to hear, you could say, the path of perfection, the conclusion, at least for those on a path of practice. Today's verse is a conclusive verse, as we may have read or may have heard in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Lord Chaitanya was discussing with Ramananda Roy on the perfection of human form of life. Ramananda Roy was giving various shastric answers to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But only when Ramananda Roy reached this verse in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, which I think we'll hear a little bit later, only then was Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu satisfied. This verse deals specifically with the science of hearing Krsna Katha and the association of devotees. So that's the main subject this evening, or this morning, or whatever time it is, wherever you are. So we'll now proceed. Rasikananda Prabhu, if you can, please. It's the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, text number 25, chapter 25. It's there. So kindly repeat. I'll read a line at a time, and we can repeat a line at a time. Okay? Satam pasangam mama virya samvido Satam prasangan mama virya samhito bhavanti vidkana rasayana kataha bhavanti vidkana rasayana kataha tajoshanar ashvabhavagatmani tajoshanar ashvabhavagatmani Shraddharatir bhaktir anukrameshyati Shraddharatir bhaktir anukrameshyati Satam prasangam mama virya samvido Satam prasangam mama virya samvido Bhavanti vitkana rasayana kataha Dajoshanadashvapavagavatmani Shraddharatir bhaktir anukrameshyati Satam prasangam mama virya samvido Bhavanti vidkarna rasayana katha Dajoshanadashvapavagavatmani Shraddharatir bhakti anukrameshyati Word for word, Satam of pure devotees. Sangat, through the association. Mama, my. Virya, wonderful activities. Samvidaha, by discussion of. Bhavanti, become. Hrit, to the heart. Karna, to the ear. Rasayanaha, pleasing. Kataha, the stories. Tat, of that. Joshanat, by cultivation. Ashu, quickly. Apavaga, of liberation. Vatmani, on the path. Shraddha, firm faith. Ratihi, attraction. Bhaktihi, devotion. Anukrameshyati, will follow in order. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. In the association of pure devotees, discussion of the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very pleasing, and very pleasing and satisfying to the ear and the heart. By cultivating such knowledge, one gradually becomes advanced on the path of liberation, and thereafter he is free, and his attraction becomes fixed. Then real devotion and devotional service begin. Purport. The process of advancing in Krishna consciousness and devotional service is described here. The first point is that one must seek the association of devotees. Seek the association of devotees who are Krishna conscious and who engage in devotional service. Without such association, one cannot make advancement. Simply by theoretical knowledge or study, one cannot make any appreciable advancement. One must give up the association of materialistic persons and seek the association of devotees. Because without the association of devotees, one cannot understand the activities of the Lord. Generally, people are convinced of the impersonal feature of the absolute truth because they do not associate with devotees. They cannot understand that the absolute truth can be a person and have personal activities. This is a very difficult subject matter, and unless one has personal understanding of the absolute truth, there is no meaning to devotion. Service or devotion cannot be offered to anything impersonal. Service must be offered to a person. Non-devotees cannot appreciate Krishna consciousness by reading the Srimad Bhagavatam or any other Vedic literature wherein the activities of the Lord are described. They think that these activities are fictional, manufactured stories because spiritual life is not explained to them in the proper mood. To understand the personal activities of the Lord, one has to seek the association of devotees, and by such association, when one contemplates and tries to understand the transcendental activities of the Lord, the path of liberation is open and he is freed. One who has firm faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes fixed, and his attraction for association with the Lord and the devotees increases. Association with devotees means association with the Lord. The devotee who makes this association develops the consciousness for rendering service to the Lord. And then, being situated in a transcendental position of devotional service, he gradually becomes perfect. Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Wonderful. Verse and purport by Srila Prabhupada describing this most important subject matter of association with devotees, what association with devotees means, and what the effects of that association are. In the association, we'll probably discuss this subject over more than one class, most likely. In the association of devotees, the essential activity which takes place in that association is we hear Krsna Katha, as this verse and purport emphasize. We don't just associate on according to our position within the modes of nature, interacting according to our condition, but rather we hear Krishna Katha, discuss and hear Krishna conscious topics. And the result of that is several results. One is very pleasing and very satisfying. Everyone is looking for satisfaction by nature. And in the material world, comes and goes according to the various karmas, etc. The Krishna Katha is a subject matter which helps the living entity develop a taste beyond the modes of nature, beyond the temporary world. And it's very pleasing. When something is very pleasing, naturally it becomes attractive to, again, engage in that activity. So hearing Krishna Katha is very pleasing. Satisfying, in other words, is the hankering or the distress or disturbance caused by other endeavors to be happy subsides. This has to be cultivated. If we ever have any experience in farming or in gardening, we all know the need to cultivate. It's not just about planting a seed. The whole process involves cultivation of many different kinds of The cultivatory activities have to be to take place, preparing the land, which is like, you could say in one sense, association, favorable. When the land is suitable for that particular seed, then the seed may grow. The seed may grow. More chance of growing. That's not the only thing which is required. And association has to be suitable. For instance, in a garden, there have to be, some maybe fertilizer. The soil has to be prepared. It may take years sometimes. There may have to be worms in order to aerate the soil, and so on and so forth. And then we also have to be careful, because in any cultivation there may be various aliens that come along to interfere with our endeavor. Weeds come along, insects, bugs, funguses, all kinds of things may manifest, which may disturb the cultivation of that plant. Even though we put the seed in the ground, the seed of bhakti has been planted by the association of devotees. But still, we have to be careful. Many weeds, many, problems may come along, obstacles may come along. So we must be very careful to weed the garden, to protect the plants from various creatures, insects, whatever it may be, which may disturb the plant's growth, and so on. Many things may be there. So that again involves association. We have to be very careful to avoid association which is detrimental to the purpose of associating with devotees, which is to develop this attraction for hearing Krsna Katha. So it has to be cultivated very carefully. And of course, Krsna Katha has to be there. Without the actual Krsna Katha, even protecting ourselves from other association. And that's why most people are inclined towards the impersonal path, because without that watering or without that process of associating with devotees, those who have understood the ultimate goal of the Vedas, etc., then the tendency is to get stuck at just detachment from the material world, which generally involves being on the impersonal path of understanding the absolute truth. So it's extremely important to associate with devotees who are with that understanding of what the absolute truth actually is. And in that association, we can gradually advance towards liberation or freedom. Liberation is of various kinds. It's not only the impersonal liberation. Actual liberation is when the soul is situated in our eternal constitutional position. Anything short of that is not complete, even if we do realize our spiritual nature. Without understanding the actual nature of the soul fully, that our constitutional natures includes our relationship with the supreme personal interaction, etc. And then we're not complete in our liberation. But when a devotee or when a living entity has this opportunity to come into the association of those who are fixed in devotional service, then it enables us to also become fixed in our attraction towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when one comes into that situation and advances by cultivation in the right association, one cultivates one's devotional kripa, one gradually advances beyond the stage of anarthas, anartha nivritti, to the stage of nishtha, or being fixed in one's practices. One may not be in the stage of let's say, spontaneous attraction, even at that stage, or even fixed attraction, but one is no longer disturbed by anarthas, which constantly drag us away from the object or the purpose of associating with devotees. When we start to meditate or indulge ourselves in varieties of material speculations, or material forms of sense enjoyment, etc. From a steady devotion service, nishtha sadhana bhakti, and then gradually, by the performance of nishtha sadhana bhakti, one starts to develop a genuine attraction, genuine ruchi, a satisfaction, an attraction, a taste for devotional service. It's not depending anymore on the results. It's not depending on anything external. It's not depending upon recognition. It's not depending on any of these, let's say, external features. It is simply because one is absorbed and fixed steady in one's devotional service. And in that stage, realizations, deep realizations may start to evolve. And one actually becomes very much, one may even take a real taste in devotional service and very much attracted, becomes very, very attracted to hearing and chanting about Krishna and service to Krishna, everything about Krishna. And begins to see everything in relationship with Krishna, Krishna and everything. When one comes to that stage of Shakti, when one is completely attached to Krishna, there's no interest in anything else. It's not just that devotional service is better than anything else. One becomes more and more in the consciousness. There is nothing else even worth contemplating. Devotional service is just completely satisfying to the heart, to the soul, to the ear, everything. At that stage, in this verse, we see described that pure devotional service begins. Now, before we go on to our discussion from the Bhagavad, I'm going to read something which is, can you give me this red book here, please? Something. It's hooked into something. Thank you. This is a commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur on this verse. And it kind of sums up something we may miss when we read it. Although Prabhupada does mention it, and the verse mentions it, but only briefly. This is the commentary from Vishwanath Chakravarti. Have you all had your gulabs?
Okay, you can use my phone.
Can you do it simultaneously? Do it simultaneously. Try it simultaneously.
Rien à faire, tu juste changer.
Oui, mais est-ce qu'il est...
Just touch this. You do it simultaneously on your phone.
Yeah, but my phone is already on
computer.
Associating in such a way that is detrimental to it. Therefore, we don't make progress. In other words, we're unsteady. That's the unsteady. And nishtita, it's called a nishtita bhajana kriya. Unsteady devotion service. Our bhajan has to become nishta bhajana kriya. And that nishta bhajana kriya has a very powerful effect. Steady. That's why in initiation we receive certain directives from Prabhupada, our Prabhupada have given us various sadhana to perform. And when we perform that steadily, this is the method, this is the cultivation of removing the anarthas. Because they come to the surface in the beginning. And when they come to the surface, sometimes we may have a little bit over-attachment to those anarthas, and it's a little difficult to let go. We don't want to let go, but this is the process, just to keep cultivating Bhakti Kripa under the direction of the pure devotee, hearing, chanting, serving, remembering, worshipping, and so on. And gradually the anarthas may be removed from hearts. And the more the anarthas are removed, the clearer devotional service becomes. When it comes to the clearing stage, chanting, hearing, and so on and so forth. And become very steady, as we already mentioned. So he goes on elixir. Elixir is like some, rasayana, or something very extremely, what can I say? Wow. This irresistible nectar. Exact translation of the word elixir is something for the heart and the ears. It's pretty much Srila Bhakti on a higher level, but it's a feeling within the heart. One is completely satisfied with the ruchi. By taste for these topics, a Shakti, or full attachment to Krishna. And then after a Shakti comes Bhava and Prema. And for the Lord, who is the destroyer of material life. It's not that we do it. is that the Lord himself in the heart, Shrinvatum Sakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kita Vijantak Stoya Badrani Vidinoti Satan. The Lord in our heart, when we're steady in our devotion to those great devotees, when we serve them steadily, with our body, mind, words, everything, then the Lord in the heart removes the abhadras, the unwanted desires within our hearts. We can't do it. It's not within our power. The material energy is very powerful. Very hard to overcome. And this is the surrendering process to Krishna, is to surrender to the pure devotees and follow their instruction. Cultivating the bhakti, this is surrender. We may or may not want to follow, but surrender means we follow. And by following their instructions, the Lord is very reciprocal. He reciprocates as they surrender unto me. He sends his pure devotees, or the pure devotees come into this world to give us this chance to surrender. Otherwise, we don't know what surrender means. It's going to be a mixture of our own experience, our own conditioning. The pure devotees teach us how to surrender. And it begins with this simple cultivation of sadhana bhakti. And if we're actually following the process, then step by step one can progress on the path towards praying. Then the verse states, Lord, one quickly develops in sequence. Commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti. Only by association with devotees does the mind develop an attraction for the Lord. It won't happen otherwise. We may have some concocted idea about the truth, about who is the supreme or what is the supreme, but we will not actually have a genuine attraction for the Lord. It may be a speculative one, philosophical one, or whatever it may be, but it's not founded on a genuine relationship of love, of understanding the essential nature of our relationship with God and God's nature, which is full of loving exchanges, rasa. It will never be understood, only in the association of those why Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came Sankirtan movement to relish loving exchanges with the new name. This is the purificatory process of pure devotees of the Lord, or at least given us. The stage association should be desired. It should be desired. Desire has to be. Just like yesterday, we went for Harinam Sankirtan in a nearby city to a farm here in Limarport in France. And I had to go back to the car for some reason, a little early, so I stood there waiting for the other devotees. And one man comes up, he said, I'm fascinated, a French man, spoke English. Fascinated, why are you dressing like this? What are you doing? And we started talking, and he was very interested, he was fascinated. And it's the beginning of his little cultivation. He took some books and said, I said, we have a restaurant. I said, where is it? Gave him a card, this, that, the other. Maybe the beginning of his little steps, little fascination, somehow or another, good fortune, some liquor, just about 5 meters away from where I was standing. He came over. So cultivation of bhakti, very friendly man, extremely, and his friends were extremely grateful and very friendly and helpful. They asked to help me to find the other devotees. They were giving me reports if they were coming or not. Tiny little service. It was the beginning of their devotion. So stages. The previous verse mentioned how association should be desired. workers we had last time. I want you to desire, because this association of devotees destroys or removes the pernicious, the hellish, the horrible effects of material association. So this is association with devotees who are fixed in the path of devotion. How are we going to become fixed if we only associate? And okay, we don't get so much physical association, perhaps we're locked down still. I don't know where you are. Wherever you are, if you're in America, you might be. If you're in India, you probably are. And in other countries too, you may still be in some kind of lockdown. Certainly there are restrictions in place. So we may not be having the association physically that we normally do. You have your internet association, which is good. But we can also associate with pure devotees by reading from Srila Prabhupada's books regularly. This is the association. Prabhupada one letter. One devotee wrote saying, Srila Prabhupada, I'm alone here. I have very little association. How can I advance in Krishna consciousness? Prabhupada wrote back saying, you read my books and you become the association. So hearing from Prabhupada, again, it's a quality of hearing, cultivation, submissive, desire that we want to associate with a pure devotee. Maybe in the beginning we don't. Maybe because we have material attachments, we're a little bit hesitant about getting too close. It's not unusual. But if we really want to advance, that is surrender, letting go of this hesitation, letting go of this reservation, this fear, or whatever it may be, and actually associating. It doesn't just mean coming and talking about one's own life. Pure devotees may do that. I remember one time in the Bhakti Vedanta Maharaj, I wasn't in the room, we heard about it. What was his name? Famous wood racing driver. Forgotten his name. He was world champion motor racing driver at the time, 1973. And he lived in Hertfordshire, not far from the Bhakti Vedanta Maharaj. And this man, some of the devotees invited him to come to see Srila Prabhupada. So he came. He was polite. He was a gentleman, kind of gentlemanly, polite, but he had not much interest in anything but was absorbed in motor racing. To discuss about his business, his motor racing, whatever. Not very spiritual, to say the least, in one sense. But Prabhupada allowed this. And when the time came, Srila Prabhupada saw an opportunity to introduce basic spiritual directives. Danger when you're a motor racing driver. The risk is very high, and one's faced with a good chance of death is on one's doorstep. One may have a crash at 200 or 300 kilometers an hour or whatever they go, or more maybe, I don't know, but at very high speeds. And it's very, very dangerous. And Prabhupada was, at that stage, brought in the subject matter, what happens, maybe why there is danger, why we fear, what happens if we die, what is going on. Somehow or another, philosophy, connection, cultivation, devotional service entered in at the root stage, maybe very beginning stage. And then the man didn't go very far, but Prabhupada then prasadam, he took prasadam and left. So he had a great opportunity. The pure devotees may be able to do that. We have to be a little careful, same thing we may do, but a little bit careful that we don't become absorbed in those subject matters. The pure devotees are fixed. They're not disturbed even in the presence of causes of disturbance, not disturbed. Whereas we may be. So we have to be a little bit cautious. Eventually, after about 2 weeks, maybe a little more, I can't remember. After that racing driver died in a crash. And it wasn't it wasn't a car, it was a plane crash. He was in his private jet and he crashed to the ground. He died. So he got that little bit of mercy. Krishna, he's taken a better birth. The good fortune of associating with a pure devotee. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur goes on. We should desire that association. This is, we may be desiring many things, but this is the most valuable thing to desire, the association of pure devotees of the Lord. Then, when one desires what it comes into association, faith arises. Of course, it may be a little bit there already, but it starts to really rise in the proper association. Just like with the association of Prabhupada, many people's faith, everybody's faith, anyone who associated them to some degree, their faith grew or became very strong. From excellent, which is the word in the verse, excellent association with devotees. What happens is that stories, and it's interesting because verse pastime stories, whichever word we use, is emphasized here. The pastimes of the Lord. It's not just philosophy, but pastimes. But the pastimes of the Lord, stories of my pastimes become nectar for the ears. Philosophy may be very interesting, but it's not fully satisfying to the heart. But when one hears the sweet pastimes from the right source, from the pure devotees, then satisfaction of the heart starts to take place. And the ears, in other words, the ears desire, perhaps you've had that experience. Sometimes we get a little sample of this, a little sample. I guess we've had a little experience of that sample a little bit, maybe, I don't know, but it seems like it. We used to be irresistible. It's mixed with you could say, the influences of the false ego, maybe, but still something's there. A little attraction. Whenever kirtan began, we would run to be there. It may not be the case at all stages now, but that was a situation. It was hard to carry on doing anything else when kirtan begins. You feel like, wow, you just want to be there. And sometimes it's made a little sample of this spontaneous or this deep flow towards, let's say in this case, the essential practice, the essential process, the essential dharma, whatever it is for Kali Yuga. An attraction, if we can develop an attraction from Sankirtan, chanting in the association of devotees. This is the method for Kali Yuga. To come into the association of devotees and to chant. And in that association, maybe it takes some time, but gradually all the interference will be dissipated. Whatever the interference may be, maybe wanting to be noticed, maybe hoping to get away with not having to do any other service. What other interferences? There are many there in our hearts, maybe other desires cropping up, and so on. Trying to impress others. No, that will gradually dissipate if we're in the association of those who are actually pure in heart. It may not always be so easy, but the process is there. The devotees are present in the form of fiction. Just like we lost the association now of the Vapu of our dear Bhakti Maharaj. But we can associate through Vani. Prabhupada's Vani is coming through all the devotees, various ways, and certainly through Bhakti Maharaj behavior, loving exchanges, dedication to Prabhupada. and so on and so forth. So many wonderful qualities that he possessed. So we can take advantage by qualities. When we associate with devotees who have certain qualities, we can pick them up. When a devotee has them, it's surprising how suddenly our attraction to your Srimad Bhagavatam can develop there. It can develop. It doesn't mean that that's a permanent state. It can be changed, and it's developed into that condition by association. And it can change by association. So association is so important on the path of devotional service. The more we associate with the purer we become. The more we associate with the mind's impurity, if it's the case. But Krishna says the mind can be our friend or our enemy. So the idea is to fill our minds with Krishna conscious thoughts as much as we can, devotion service, thoughts of how to spread Krishna consciousness. There's also purity. Thoughts of what we hear, the pastimes of Krishna. Prabhupada said that Krishna performed so many pastimes in his various incarnations. So we have so many things to think about. Because it may take some time. But this is the method, to fill our minds, our hearts with thoughts about Krishna. And the pastimes of Krishna are 100%. If heard, it's essential that we hear them from the right source, not from the impure source, from the Mayavadi source, or from the materialistic source, but from the pure source. If we hear them from the pure source, then we can have more, there's a great chance that we'll become purified. Of course, we have to hear. One thing is the pure source, also has to be the hearing. And thus, Srila Goswami describes that the hearing process, we generally speaking, even describes the next. For those who have developed an attraction to hear the pastimes of the Lord, the holy name of the Lord, they should be engaged in regular, constant service. We'll purify our consciousness, purify our, let's say, our means, or our the means by which we hear the holy name of the Lord. We use the external features of the ear, mind, but ultimately it also has to come through the consciousness to the soul. The consciousness is interacting there in one sense. So the mind, if we desire, we'll fill that mind as much as we can with devotional thoughts, and as much as we can physically with appropriate association. Both of them work together to achieve the purpose, ultimate purpose of the soul. But desire has to be there. We have to desire it. That desire is cultivated in the association of devotees naturally. It goes around. But the association of devotees is so essential in this transformation where our consciousness is no longer racing towards material thoughts in the mind or racing towards material objects around us. It always wants to focus on Krishna. When we become more Krishna conscious, that no matter what happens in the mind or around us, our consciousness will pick up and we'll see things in relationship with Krishna and not just be dragged away, controlled by the mind, controlled by the nature, the modes of nature, etc. You have to conquer the mind. That mind, how to conquer the mind? By this process. The pure devotees have given us gradually, the mind can be conquered. So that the pictures that we see, even if we are going here, everywhere there will be thoughts of Krishna. The idea to fill the mind, come to Mantra Yoga, to be full in devotional service, at least at this stage, fully engaged in devotional service. So gradually the mind is receiving nothing but impressions of devotional service. And as time goes by, the mind will become more and more, less and less full of material thoughts and more full of Krishna conscious thoughts. So Srila Chakravarti Thakur goes on. Faith arises in association. From an excellent association, stores of my pastimes become nectar for the ears. From inferior association, there is only, and this is a very interesting subject, from inferior association. And it's referring here not just to mundane association, but the association of devotees who are not in a very advanced stage of devotional service. From inferior association, there is only bhajana kriya, but the stories do not become nectar. They may have some temporary excitement, interest, but not genuine nectar. And one can learn tasting nectar doesn't really begin until one comes to the nishta stage at least. It may be interesting, a part of our, daily project, program, or whatever it may be, but it's not that nectar that one cannot live without hearing. It's like love. If we really, in the material world, whatever, we call it love, whatever it is, but when there's an intense attraction between people, we always want to hear about it, or even for things. If we're very much attached to a subject matter, we're always eager to hear about it. And we feel excited when we hear the subject coming up. The most exciting thing is ourself. When topics concerning ourselves are brought up, we're usually very interested to hear. But even external topics that may not even be personal, it may be some activity of some kind or some place, we're very, very eager to hear. But in terms of spiritual topics, we may not be so eager to hear it. Those attractions to the stories are not. So it's only when we come into the association of someone who's talking about it, we may listen, heard this before, can't he talk about something else? But that means we have no attraction. That's a sure sign we have no attraction. Or Krishna consciousness. We may have some, but not on that level of realized or fixed level. We're still unsteady. We have something. Obviously, we would be here. Some faces are. So that real strong, firm faith is developed in association with devotees. We want nothing else but to hear Krishna Katha. Please don't talk about anything else, Prabhu. How is this helping us to become Krishna conscious? Let's talk about Krishna. Let's talk about what we've heard from the Krishna book. Well, I've heard it before. Let's hear it again. We may have heard it, but we haven't really heard it. Otherwise, we want to hear it again. Because it's ever relishable. Same topic over and over again becomes ever fresh. Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, ever fresh. You can read them a billion times and they never stay or boring. They're ever fresh. But it's the process, hearing from the right. Those topics then produce ruchi. Sorry, I missed it. Then those stories called nishta. They call it anartha nivritti. I missed 2 lines. This is the point. Thus, so from inferior association, there is only bhajana kriya, but the stories do not become nectar. Thus, from excellent association, called anartha. Then those stories called nisha. Those stories called realization, samvidana, of my great qualities. So another effect of association, but not just to experience some kind of nectar, direct realization of the great qualities of the Lord. If we hear about them in the association of devotees. Those topics then produce ruchi. It happens. It's not like some, mundane mechanical process. It's just a natural awakening as the sun naturally rises in the morning. Everything becomes clear. You don't have to kind of go out there with ropes and cranes and everything, pulling the sun up. It happens very naturally. One naturally starts to see things clearly. The darkness of night is dissipated. So similarly, in this system of the situation of association, naturally things become clearer and clearer. So important. From the taste, so yet those stories become directly realizations of my great qualities, and those topics then produce ruchi, pleasing to attraction there in the beginning, and some faith and some endeavor is there to churn these topics in the association, by churning these topics in the association of devotees. Just like if any of us have ever made ghee, and we make sometimes Lord Janananda Prabhu and others here make ghee from butter. Just a simple example. Some of you may be vegans, I don't know, but the process is to make ghee, you take, well, you boil it actually. To make other greens, you make churn, so it becomes thicker and thicker. But you have to boil it in this case. It's a similar example. Boiling the milk, boiling the butter, and gradually the impurities come to the surface. And it becomes clear, and you scoop off the impurities. It becomes clear. Don't stir the bottom of the pot. Leave it there. So keep boiling steadily, and gradually the butter becomes purer and purer and transforms into pure ghee with no impurities whatsoever. So in the right process, in the right association, there may be many impurities. We have all got a fair big load of them in our conscious or in our hearts, in our minds. So many impurities are there. But by this process of gradually boiling, churning, for devotees, gradually it becomes pure and pure and pure to the stage, as we just heard, of Nishta. And now the sweet taste is coming, Ruchi is coming. And there's a pleasing to the ear and heart from Ruchi, Joshanat, from taste, Joshanat, of those topics. A Sakti, Shraddha, firm faith, a Shakti, as we mentioned earlier. It's not like, blind faith. It's not like sort of comparative faith. I have more faith. What do you believe? I believe in this, I believe in that. It's not like that. Completely, 100%, there is nothing else. Everything is in relationship with the glories of the opulences of the Lord. Everything is in relation. Everything is seen in relationship, no matter what it is. Persons in different modes of nature, situations around us, thoughts that may still, sometimes as trace thoughts come into our minds of other things. But everything is seen in relationship with Krishna. Every situation, if we happen to be engaged in interactive actions in this material world, everything is seen in relationship with the Supreme Personality of God when he's on the platform of Shakti. There's nothing, there's no deviation, there's nothing other than seeing everything as Krishna in everything, and everything is Krishna's. So when it's in firm attraction to Krishna, everything we might stage of course, Bhakti and Prema. And then we go on and here, from the taste, Yosha is talking to Shakti, Shraddha, firm faith, and then Bhava, Rati, ecstatic, when one experiences genuine ecstasy. It's not just some comparative ecstasy, it's not something born because of one's modes of nature, and that particular form of devotional service or devotee happens to excite us and make us feel good. And it's nothing to do when we get the results for our activities, we get recognized. It has nothing to do with that whatsoever. It's just natural, spontaneous, internal bhava. There's kinds of bhavas there, but it's a natural internal one. It's not something conjured. It comes spontaneously because one excites. There's no difference. And when it's constantly absorbed in experiencing, or let's say, realizing Krishna's presence in every moment, in every thing, and everywhere, and there's nothing else. One is naturally ecstatic. That's the result of being 100% in the association of Krishna, so to speak. It may not be a relationship of actual rasa, but it's just experiencing Krishna's all-pervasiveness, his presence in every single way, devotees in every living entity which a devotee feels Krishna, one naturally experiences closer to one's eternal constitutional relationship with the Lord. Then prema, pure bhakti, follows in this order. The bhakti explained by me, or Kapila Dev says, me now will be preached in the world following this sequence. And this is the method, this sequence. Starting with a little bit of good fortune, and a little faith, a little shraddha, a little association, and so on. And the process goes on. Jiva Goswami describes this verse, for reading from the Bhagavatam 25. At the end of the line, the first of the verse itself, it says, real devotion, devotional service begin. We see in the Bhagavad Gita in the 18th chapter, Krishna says, Brahmabhuta Prasanatma, the Shochiti Bhakti Param. So when one comes to the spiritual platform, freed of the effects of the modes of material nature, with no more hankering for material things, no more lamenting about material things. And one's come to a little bit of a man or spiritual realization, then one engages in full devotional service. And Jiva Goswami says, in terms of the verse from the Bhagavatam we read today, that this means that one has come to the level of prema. Real devotional service is prema. It starts when one is on this cultivating, as we've just heard, just stage by stage. But the ultimate meaning of this, then real devotion and devotional service begins. It means act. Because I won't know when we're going off screen. Yeah, we were discussing how important it is to serve in the association or under the guidelines of a pure devotee. Because although we may not be pure, our devotional service may not be on that level of purity.
Disconnect everyone.
It's
online. It's online, right?
Yeah, I know we're online, but we're going on and off every 2 minutes.
Okay, I'm just trying to find a solution.
So they've given us a
We're offline right now, but that's it. Now we're online.
Okay. I don't know if you're there or not. But, it's quite disappointing when we get a green mango. It's not satisfying to the tongue. What to speak of the stomach? It's sour, hard, not nice taste. So maybe if we'd never heard of what is a mango, we've never had anything else to eat, maybe it's okay. We think, oh, this is good. But it's not what a mango is meant to be. It's meant to be sweet, irresistible, elixir to the tongue. But not a green mango, please. So devotional service can be like that. At the beginning, probably. It can be a little like a green mango, but it's a mango. It's just not ripe. We have to ripen it, as we heard in the beginning. The process of ripening or cultivating our devotional service very carefully. Ripe mango, also we have to be careful. We're not the only one who likes ripe mangoes. A lot of other living entities like them too, and they're pretty eager. Of course, it's a mundane example. And we have to be careful that our tender devotional creepers are not carried away by other, let's say, plunderers, hijackers of various kinds. Our devotional service can easily be hijacked by bad association, It may look like good association, covered with spirituality and so on. We have to be very careful we don't get hijacked. We have to constantly refer or keep shelter of the pure devotees of the Lord. They're regularly hearing their instructions. So our intelligence, Prabhupada says, by our intelligence to be sharpened by regularly hearing the scriptures from the right source. So that we don't make, let's say, wrong calculations. Our intelligence is meant to make calculations, but it decides on things from the wrong angle if we're not focused, properly focused. It becomes a conditional decision based upon our condition. So we try to hear from the pure devotees what is the proper way of relating, understanding our relationship with the phenomena around us or within us in our minds, so we don't get hijacked or dragged away by material desires or pseudo-spirituality, or mayavad, or whatever it may be, something mixed, to come to the pure platform by associating with the pure. So now let's see, it's 11:20. So this is just a foundation to this verse. We haven't started the, let's say, the expansion of the topics yet. Now, this is a foundation session today. One second. Just glean a few more points from the purport. We've already discussed the verse. Emphasis is given without, simple as that. Without places, Prabhupada said it is a complete, can make us advancement of spiritual life without the association, which is not possible. It's the essential factor. Association is the cause of our remaining in this world. It's the cause of our liberation. The word is mentioned, this word, apavarga, liberation, pravarga, apavarga. That liberation, freedom from the modes of nature, is only possible associating with those who are not under the modes of nature. This is one major point. Because of not associating with devotees, people come to the wrong conclusions here. Another point Prabhupada mentions here. They come to the conclusion. We've already mentioned that briefly with mayavad, because unless they understand the actual glories of the Lord, then the natural tendency is to come to the conclusion of God as a person, because we do not understand the transcendental nature of the Lord's pastimes. The living end is considered comparable to our own, because that's what we remember experiencing as mundane pastimes, mundane activity, etc. Even form, our concept of form is totally mundane in this world. So the idea of spirituality is generally seen as an opposite to what we're experiencing. A negation of materialism, but without any genuine understanding of the constitution of the nature of spirituality, the tendency is to come to the impersonal platform. Or even more, let's say, gross, the atheistic platform, where there is nothing beyond matter. Conclude everything is an illusion, there's nothing beyond this material world, it's whatever it is. Or gross materialism, or concludes the purpose of all this stuff is to enjoy our senses more, to try to go to heaven, and enjoy in the heavenly planets. Different types of unfortunate conclusions are drawn unless we hear from the right source. And even if such persons hear these literatures, the Bhagavatam, or whatever it may be, and I've seen personally, even different persons who read the Bhagavatam, and they come to the conclusion all is one. They pick out a verse, and to them, that's the conclusion. Everything is just, a means to come to that ultimate conclusion. And even most of the commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita come to the conclusion it's not Krishna you select to, it's the unborn, unlimited, inconceivable, all-pervasive spirit within. They come to this conclusion. There's no personal relationship there, only with oneself. is the epitome of self-centeredness, basically speaking. They can't understand the literature unless submissive, unless we're fortunate to hear from the right source with a submissive. As Prahlad Maharaj states to his father in the Bhagavatam 7th canto, Matya Krishna, Paratoksatovā, Tobi Padyeti Vihavata. Even if they hear from others, even those who are grossly materialistic in their way of looking through lenses, just check it online. Looking through lenses, we see everything according to the lens. It may or may not be what it actually is, but we see it according to our concept, the way we perceive it. And it's like that people are so materialistically absorbed, have a strong attachment to this material world, of family life and achieving in this world, or so much attachment to themselves and so on. Matirna Krishna Paratoksatovā, Mitobi Padyin Vihavitanam, that they can't understand the subject matter. Even they hear it from a pure devotee. If one is determined not to hear it, then one still doesn't get it full. One gets some long distant benefit, no doubt. But one won't understand the real nature of devotional service, what to speak of Krishna. Devotional service is just another activity, or if one's spiritual, another spiritual activity. They don't see the sense, the absoluteness of Krishna, nor devotional service, nor devotees. So very unfortunate. So there is another side to it. We're not getting into that now. We've discussed that in other sessions. The eligibility to hear and our attachments to various material objects, to this, that, the other. But there also has to be, as Narottam Das, Bhakti Vinod Thakur sings, Chaliya Vaishnava say, how's that verse go? Anyway, different verses. If we want to enter into Vrindavan, we have to become freed of all these material attractions or attachments in this world. That also takes place if we're fortunate to be in the association, because that gradually takes place. Gradually, if we stay in the association. Sometimes it takes a little while. We're still pretty rooted in the material world. We go back and forth like this. We're rooted in our ideas of the absolute truth, etc. And we're not yet eligible even sometimes to hear it. The whole process of the Hare Krishna movement is to help us to become eligible, to free us from all these material attachments in this material world. Krishna, as that verse in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna said, those who have acted piously in this life as well as in previous lives with sinful reactions are burned up, who are freed of the duality of this delusion of this material world, can engage in devotional service with determination. Again, Srila Prabhupada said, I've created your piety. I've made this eligibility. We may not have it. Some or another, if one is fortunate to get an association, then there's every chance. We just have to take that fortune. But despite our ineligibility to engage in pure devotion service, by the mercy of the pure devotee, we can become eligible to engage in devotional service and progress, as these verses explain. So Prabhupada goes on. What's the famous verses there? Takshri Krishna Namadina Bhavam Vaimi Siva Mukhi. But with our material senses, we cannot understand the transcendental nature of the Lord. But by engaging in devotional service under the direction of a pure devotee, then the Lord gives that realization step by step as we surrender to the direction of the pure devotee. Offline again. Is that right? Okay. Looks like maybe not. Maybe not. I think we can figure out what this is. Okay. Good morning. I think we can do it, is it?
I think you're still online, Maharaj.
Are we?
Yeah.
It doesn't see anything from our end for some reason.
Okay.
Okay, well, we'll carry through. Well, we're more or less finished the introductory session to this verse today. Maybe we can open up for questions now, because there's a bit flickering at our end with the reception. So if anyone has any questions, I don't know how I'm going to see them because I don't have any screen here. I just see my own screen. I don't see myself. I don't see anything going on here.
Should be in the chat.
Yeah, well, we can't see the chat because we're not getting the screen. There's no screen. I've got no screen. I'm just seeing my own writing. We're online, but I'm not getting the vision. There's something missing. Something missing. We're online. You just spoke to us. We're online. There's no problem. We just spoke a couple of seconds ago. Said we are online. We're not getting any
Video.
what do you say? Anything from Rasikananda's side. There we're back in. So if there are any questions, please feel free to ask, preferably on chat. And we'll try to give some chit. You chat, we chit. Chit means the answer. Truth. You can remember some words from Prabhupada. So Irish areas. So far, anything coming in? I don't know. We have to do something to see it. Maybe
Rasikananda can ask the question. Someone writes, he can hear him.
Normally I see them on the box.
Chat.
But they have to get the box open. Yeah, chat down here. Maybe that's the box. I don't know if that's me or them.
No, but you should be able to see.
This is very low. Maybe there is no.
Okay. So I will try and copy and paste the previous messages. Just give me 1 second.
Yeah, for some reason I'm not getting them. I don't know why.
Probably it's because
We'll try to do a bit better next time. Today has been very steady. We're not on the stage of Nishta yet. We're still on the unsteady Anishtita. Anishtita internet this morning. Very unsteady. Oh, here's something's coming in here. No, I'll be okay, I think. Okay, Hare Krishna. Soul is never born, never dies. Body is perishable, which stay in this world when we die. Yes. Body is perishable when we die. Yes, I think so. I haven't experienced it yet, but we'll probably have. I just forgotten a few billion times. We see it all around us that the body stays in this world. Generally, the physical body stays in this world. The subtle body goes with us. We're carried on that subtle body according to the nature of the subtle body. That's why, by association, the subtle body develops its qualities. So similarly, or let's say, importantly, that we develop a spiritual, our subtle body becomes spiritualized. We utilize our physical body to assist in the spiritualization of the subtle body. So that at the time when we quit our gross body, our material gross body, we can go to the spiritual realm. We don't have to come back in another gross body. So that's the idea. But we can leave the gross body behind, but we go back to Godhead in our spiritualized body, in the sense of our spiritualized consciousness and the mind, which the consciousness is focused upon. So spiritualizing the everything around us by utilizing our physical body helps us to develop a pure mind, and constantly consciousness also becomes purified, unadulterated. Navanita chore to everyone. Thank you, Hare Krishna. From Madhava Nanda to everyone. Which body do we get a reaction for? Subtle body. When we are in front of Yamaraj, what body? What does that mean?
I think his question is more like, for the reactions when we go to hellish planets or heavenly planets, who is the enjoyer or who is the sufferer? Is it the subtle body? That's his question mark.
Oh, I see. Is it the subtle body that enjoys? No, not really. Subtle body as an instrument is a material energy. We're identifying with it. Because of identification with that body, the living entity is experiencing the effects. The effects are duality in this world, known as happiness and stress, and there are multiple other varieties of dualities are there. which we experience on the platform of the mind, because our consciousness is, the soul is identifying through the consciousness with the various effects that we see on the screen of the mind. Just like when you watch a television program, we are affected by the television, what we see on the television. It's not that the television itself is experiencing happiness and distress. It's simply an instrument showing us various types of effects. So similarly, the mind is an instrument, and the living entity through the consciousness is experiencing the various effects on the screen of the mind, the very complex, high-dimensional, multi-dimensional, I could say, program which we're visualizing. And according to our false ego, the living entity, we sometimes see certain things as pleasing and certain things as displeasing. But it's the soul itself that's experiencing the happiness and distress. As we read in the Bhagavad Gita, I think it's in the 14th chapter, that the material nature is the cause of all the effects of this material, but the living entity is the cause of its own happiness and distress. There's the soul through the media of consciousness is experiencing the pain or the pleasure. One living entity on seeing something in the mind is experiencing pleasure, and another living entity is experiencing pain from the same effect. And that's seen very easily because of false ego of identifying oneself with a various place or a various person or a various activity. For one living entity, one food is awful. For the other living entity, it's elixir. For one living entity, when somebody wins, it's fantastic. When that same thing wins to another, it's awful. And certain people they hate them, and certain people love them. Everything is according to our condition. We can say it's according to our karma, but that's ultimately based upon the living entity's ego. Ultimately. So the actual experience of that comes back to the conscious living. Dead matter does not experience. Living force experiences. So the soul is experiencing the happiness and distress, but in complete illusion as to its actual nature, completely intoxicated by the condition of the material world that we are presently absorbed in. Like in a dream. In a dream, it's not that the dream is experiencing itself. The dream is simply various visions that we're seeing before our dream is somewhat conscious. We're conscious. Consciousness maybe not be very developed or very mature, but we're conscious. And we can actually, we don't remember it mostly because we're not that conscious. But the dream, we are conscious and we do experience happiness and distress in the dream. And it's the soul, again, who's experiencing the happiness and distress. They're unaware. Just like when we watch the television, even there sometimes we're unaware. Why should I be affected by this? It's nothing to do with me at all, really. It's just a screen showing various, sounds coming out, sort of electrical vibrations flashing and making pictures on the screen. Why am I getting so disturbed? The dog is not disturbed. The dog is watching it and is totally undisturbed, probably thinking we're crazy. Why are we getting so disturbed? Doesn't feel less. Unless a dog comes on the screen, it has no interest in it. It means nothing. People cracking balls and screaming at each other and singing some nonsense, roaring at the top of the voice. If the sound wasn't on, I definitely think everybody was mad. Completely mad. So what to do? That's the material world, we're all mad. Next one.
Would you like me to?
No, I can read it. Thank you. Sometimes we succumb to the urges of the mind and the senses, despite knowing they are not favorable to spiritual life. How is it possible to stay steady and keep these undesirable things at a distance? The urges. Well, Prabhupada describes this in the Nectar of Instruction, the first verse. We can read it. They will come. In the first verse, Vachrovegam, Sukrodavegam, Divavegam, Udurpasthavegam. In the Nectar of Instruction, we see that verse, this very famous verse there. But sometimes we think not without. One who is freed from these urges is not being without them, it's tolerating We have to learn to tolerate. Even in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains Matasparshas to Kuntiya Shatoshna Sukadupaka, that one has to learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Tolerance, we have to tolerate sometimes. It's not just tolerance, we have to see it as on the other side with some positive alternative as well. Prabhupada goes on to describe in the purport to the first verse of Nectar Instruction how we do that positively, not just tolerating the urges, but to engage in such a way. You know, it's like if a person is a drug addict or something, you can't just stop necessarily. There has to be some alternative engagement, something which you can get your teeth into, or something which, you know, gives you that little necessary satisfaction you're hankering after, so you're not so easily drawn away to the lower one, a higher taste, or whatever you want to call it. But tolerance has to be there, Krishna says to Arjuna, by detachment and by regular practice. One can conquer over these tendencies or these temptations or whatever. It takes tolerance, it takes practice and regulation. We try to regulate it. You may not be able to completely give up immediately. Therefore, the Vedic directive is regulation, regulating things. Now, on the positive side, there's a good side there, is that if we try to remember, this is just an opportunity, Maya, or whatever we want to call it, is giving us this opportunity now. Wake up, danger. Take shelter of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. The mind wanders. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Call out to Krishna when these dangers come along. Or try to remember some verse in the Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam. Somehow or another, or go to a devotee. Somehow or another, try to see this. Try to see, be a little detached if you can. This is detachment. It's not just the detachment of the personal detachment out of, you know, frustration or anger, but detachment in the sense that we take shelter of Krishna in that sense. Try to be a little bit detached there from that object. And this is interesting philosophy. This is interesting. Just amazing. How amazing the modes of material nature are. How they're working in such a way, okay, due to my karma or whatever reason it may be. But how incredible they're working. What an incredible thing the mind is. You know, how amazing it is. Where does it all come from? How incredible material nature is. How amazing the creator of all this must be. Krishna is incredible. Try to see Krishna behind it. Maybe a little bit more philosophical imposition, you could say. But there's another way of trying to not get sick come along. Being a little detached from them and seeing them in relationship with Krishna. Otherwise, tolerance is there. We don't have to listen to the mind. Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj said we have to beat the mind with shoes and brooms and this and that. Said just say no to the mind sometimes. Again, it depends upon our determination, our faith, and our association, good fortune. We try to take advantage of the good fortune which we have. See them as impetuses to take shelter of Krishna, not just, damn it, here they come again. It's like if you're a sportsman, a warrior, whatever, they welcome challenges. Businessmen welcome challenges. They welcome them. So not that we're welcoming them, but we see in the Queen Kunti's prayers that she welcomes difficulties because they're impetuses for her to take shelter of Krishna. So these are indeed difficulties when we are faced with all kinds of material temptation, material distractions, physically or mentally or both. They are definitely disturbances. So we try to take shelter of Krishna, call out to Krishna, and at the same time try to tolerate and replace it with something higher. Hare Krishna. When I remain in association with devotees, how to avoid being familiar with them, to see them from a material platform, and thus lose the chance to take real advantage of association. Please can you guide how to avoid this, as it's my deep-rooted anartha. Although I try to avoid, it comes back. Yes, this is not just your one devotee. It's a very common thing in devotional service is familiarity breeds contempt. Well, we ourselves haven't really understood. It's a sign or symptom of lost half the audience. Hare Krishna, are you there? Sorry, Prabhu, a few technical hitches this morning. I don't know, I haven't got any more questions here. Few technical hitches.
Rasikananda Prabhu, we can post the questions now, please.
There's no further questions that I can see on the public forum. So any
The
message?
last one, I don't think Maharaj really got into it.
Well,
So
I think it was a private message, so I would not be able to see it.
Sidetracked.
Familiarity question, can you repost that one? Please?
Familiarity breeds contempt. Okay, we'll carry on. I remember. Familiarity breeds contempt. Yeah, again, it's a very common thing when we're in the neophyte platform of devotional service. It's unavoidable, practically speaking, because we've forgotten. We constantly forget what we're here for. We've forgotten our goal. We've forgotten who we are. And we start identifying ourselves and comparing, relatively speaking, friends and enemies, duality. We start to see like that, likes and dislikes, because we're still on that platform, and we start judging each other and so on and so forth. It's quite common. It's a very great anartha to say great in a sense. It's a very common anartha. It's a very disturbing one, which can really have a strong impediment on the path of devotion. So how to avoid that? Hearing from, again, the importance of submissive hearing. Regularly hearing submissively in the association of devotees. Attending classes or hearing classes and chanting. Chanting, when we're, generally speaking, when we're taking others familiarly like this, it means that we're taking Krishna like this. Everyone's a part and parcel of Krishna. So we're taking the process of devotional service lightly. Usually they're related like this. So we have to take the process of devotional service seriously and to try to understand that I am an offender, that I am a growth, whatever it is. Not that we become depressed, absorbed in ourselves, but we should understand the problem is ours, and it's not the other person's problem. It's our problem. So how do we tackle that? We have to tackle that by taking seriously the process of bhakti, to hear the sound of the holy name, to hear submissively the subject matter of Krsna Katha from the right source, to render service in a submissive way as much as we can. It's easy to say that. You can't impose it upon our hearts. We are in the condition we're in. But to hear these things, to remember these things, maybe I can improve my devotional service. We can see faults in others very easily, but the idea is that we have to see the faults within ourselves. And that becomes clarified when we chant the holy name carefully, trying to avoid the offenses while we chant the holy name of the Lord. This is the Yuga Dharma. This is the medicine to cure us of all of these various diseases or tendencies that we have in this world. Is the Yuga Dharma, Harinam Sankirtan. Kirtan. Now, a lot of devotees are not, I'm sure we could all do better. Most of us are probably living at home. We may not get so much physical opportunity. But the Yuga Dharma is the Harinam Sankirtan, congregational chanting, which includes, Sankirtan isn't just singing. Sankirtan includes every activity, every aspect of our being, our mind, our words, our body, everything, our intellect, absorption in Sankirtan. It's not so that you can go for this type of seminar on, adjusting your, psychological natures and so on and so forth, doing certain things to say no, say it, whatever it is, may be helpful. But the real essence is to get to the root. The root is this false ego. Our false ego is still not really taking ourselves seriously, or our nature, still falsely identifying ourselves and comparing ourselves with others. But this root problem is not only the root problem, even on the surface, because what happens when we take chanting or Sankirtan seriously, if we start seeing ourselves as at fault, so to speak, which you are, this is a humble start. We are seeing it's my fault. So now we take the medicine, which is Hari Nam Sankirtan, chanting the holy names with our heart and soul. It means with all of our endeavor. We try to chant and hear the holy name. It will bring up the various anarthas, and then it will bring up our repentant feeling that we're still attached, or we've done this and that, or we thought this and that about this devotee and that devotee, and we feel repentant, we feel remorseful, and so on and so forth. Again, in the association of devotees, this becomes, most effective if you can. Chanting seriously together with other devotees is a recommended method. Therefore, Sankirtan, Kirtan in the association of devotees by absorbing yourself, dancing. Don't stand still. If we can dance, dance. This is part of Sankirtan. If you can play musical instruments, play them. If you can't play them, don't play them. You simply disturb. Learn how to play musical instruments and play them. Anyone can play something. If it's nothing but the hands, we just have to learn to follow. Listen carefully and follow and be willing to take, let's say, correction.
Sorry, Maharaj, I think we'll go after.
Be willing to take correction from others. This is something which really pricks our false ego. Why should I listen to you? Try to see Krishna's hand working through others instead of our own hand all the time. Try to see Krishna's hand working. It's a remembrance. Again, this is all reminding us when we read Prabhupada's books, it reminds us of these things. To be willing. This is for our purification. It's not it's not, who are you to tell me what to do? We may think like that. We may think what we like, but that's not what's really going on. Krishna's hand is working. Even if we're right and the other person's wrong from a relative point of view, Krishna's hand is always right. And we have to see it. Externally, we may have to act if we have a position of responsibility, but internally, we see that Krishna is very kindly pointing out my faults. And if I take shelter of him, if I listen to him, then they will go away. These things keep cropping up until we let go. Until why are people always on my case? Why does nobody ever recognize me? On and on it goes, because we're still seeing ourselves as the enjoyer, as in the center. We're not putting Krishna in the center. The whole purpose of Krishna conscious movement is to put Krishna in the center. Deity worship can be very, very helpful, especially in the neophyte stage of devotional service. But it has to be done properly. It has to be done according to direction of pure devotee, according to the situation we're in. Everything is there, gradually putting Krishna in the center. Whether it's chanting, whether it's deity worship, whether it's service in general, whether it's how we see the world around us, how we see ourselves, everything is to put Krishna in the center. Then automatically, what question is there of being familiar or disrespectful to others? Because we'll see everyone has Krishna's part and parcel or related to Krishna, as an opportunity to advance in spiritual life. We should be happy when we see other devotees more advanced, because then we get their association. And if they're more advanced than we are, then we can advance also in their association. Humility. That's why Lord Chaitanya says, Trinadapi Sunichina, Tarodapi Srihishna. The more humble than the straw on the street, tolerant than the tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and ready to offer all respects to others. That's why we have to keep this verse around our neck all the time. It's like a necklace or a locket around our neck, constantly remembering to serve other devotees, to respect others. Devotee is respectful to all, not just devotees. Okay, well, we're finished there today. I think, was that one more question? And maybe, as an ashram-based devotee for over 10 years, and now in working on the farm, it's better to lose it all What do I do with that one? It's not a complete question. Is there more to it, or is that it? Or is that just a conclusion of everything? That you were an ashram devotee for 10 years, then you work on the farm, you get no more news. Oh, here it goes. On the farm, no more news of the outside world, and now in lockdown situation, work on the farm, absorbed in a Vaikuntha bubble. Well, doesn't sound bad. I don't know if it's bad or not, but it doesn't sound bad. You're absorbed in a Vaikuntha bubble. No more worries, huh? Yeah, well, that should be our situation all the time, in a sense. Although we do interact with the world around us, obviously for spreading Krishna consciousness or doing our jobs or whatever it is, but we should be in a Vaikuntha bubble. When we used to go for Sankirtan on the street distributing books, I remember with Tripurari Swami, who Prabhupada said was an incarnation of book distribution. And we were going out with him on Sankirtan in England for some time. And we would always say, he's in a Vaikuntha bubble. He's on the street, but he kind of creates this Vaikuntha bubble. The art is not just to be in lockdown and to be away from everything, but it's, as Krishna says, anashrita karma phalam karyam karma karoti sasanyasi yogi cha naniragni nachatriyaha. It's not just a matter of being detached. It's being detached from the fruits of the work, understanding they're meant for Krishna's pleasure. The real renunciant is one who acts without attachment, not one who performs no work, because you're working on the farm, which is devotional service. But in principle, any situation a devotee is in, we may not be so advanced, but in any situation we're in, one creates that Vaikuntha bubble. So one is not affected by the situation which one's in, whatever it is, whether it's at work, at school, at home, anywhere. That's mature devotional service. We're no longer affected by the anarthas. It's almost the stage, at least of Nishtha, where one can create this kind of atmosphere where you're no longer in this world, as Jesus himself said, in the world but not of it. So a devotee on an advanced stage, we're not on that advanced stage, so we do sometimes get affected by the outside world or whatever it is, or inside world, the mind. We just have to keep drawing it back again, learning from our experiences, taking shelter of Krishna. But right now, many of you have been or are in some kind of lockdown, and it's an interesting experience. Maybe different devotees are getting different results from it. But it's an opportunity to hear and chant more about Krishna, maybe online or something like that. But an opportunity to go deeper in one's devotional service and just to see, maybe refocus ourselves to our direction in life, etc. Become a little bit more conscious of what's going on in our lives. For some, maybe conscious of what's going on in the world as well. Realizing, we're not the controllers, realizing, so many sufferings and people are distressed and there's so much, anxiety and frustrations and so on. Realizing how little we've realized our spiritual identity, realizing how little we are actually Krishna conscious, and maybe different types of realizations, maybe there, whatever which situation we're in, so to speak. It's not necessary that one absolutely has to have knowledge of what's going on in the material world, but obviously if we're interacting with it, we have to have some knowledge, otherwise we won't know which way to turn when we come to the red traffic light or when we're crossing the road. We have a certain amount of knowledge is required just to interact with the world around us. That must be there. And to common sense in protecting ourselves, if needs be, from dangers and so on in this world. So, but the main thing is we try to create this Vaikuntha bubble, which is being Krishna conscious, remembering. So we need a strong sadhana in the morning, if we can, especially those who are going out to work, as much as possible. Try to have a good morning program, something at least, whatever it is, but try to make it as good as we can. So we have this little bit more of let's say, protection when we enter into our daily services, our daily work, etc. We don't get so easily affected by the circumstances around us. Some people are so affected. I know one lady, she's cannot, all day long, coronavirus, 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 cannot go out of the house. She would not allow anyone in the house. She's the wife of a devotee. She won't allow anyone in the house, even her husband. She won't let him go outside. And it's just overboard, completely overboard, day and night. Paranoia. Totally, what's the point? No, so there's no Vaikuntha bubble there. There's no, but you have to use common sense. But at the same time, this absorption in the material world is just terrible. What to do? How to change that? For some people, maybe they're not ready or willing. But we have to try to create this Vaikuntha bubble, whether we're in lockdown or not in lockdown. This is a permanent, maybe this is a little reminder of the importance of it. Whatever the situation, we have to, focus on this, trying to create that bubble. So let's create that bubble now. Don't burst it. Let's try to create that bubble. Just don't burst it, okay? Put that pin in there and burst the bubble. Let's make that bubble infallible by taking shelter of the infallible Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Ram Sankirtan ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So the next two sessions on Wednesday and Sunday will be on the same verse, but most likely I'll be in Paris. So there's a good chance that the internet will be steady and hopefully we'll have no breaks. If you'd like to join us on Wednesday and next Saturday, not Sunday, next Saturday, you're welcome. And it will probably be the same verse. Everything depends on Krishna, of course. So Hare Krishna, we can say hello to everyone. Hare Bol, hello, goodbye, whatever it's called. Hare Krishna, good evening, good morning, good night, whatever.
Hare Krishna Gurudev.
Hare Bol, Hare Krishna, thank you.
Hare Krishna,
Maharaj, Hare Bol.
Jai, Krishna, everybody. And we wish you all success in your spiritual paths. Just try to chant as much as you can. Dance, be happy with devotees, associate, hear and chant with the devotees as much as you can. Hare Krishna. Thank you all so much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Haribol! Hare Krishna, Haribol! Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Haribol. Haribol. Hare Krishna.